they don't have legitimate reason or relationship with the victim. They have no working relationship, hotel, motel clerks, restaurant, groceries. 2, service provider, police and public safety, that would be us here, medical care providers, social workers, attorneys, and judges. 3, has such a relationship with this employee, current or former employees, friends, relatives, and again, or it could be a vendor. I've got a vendor pretty mad at me now. Used to be when a dolly Masson truck would come rolling into the prison, do deliveries to the prison to stock different machines and things. He made his own little stops. He would stop at the farm office, he would stop at the guard shack, and he has his own little private enterprise going there. So that vendor's pretty mad at me. I don't think he's going to show up and do anything, but you never know. High-risk workplaces. Probation offices, unemployment, homeless, welfare, healthcare, and homeless shelter. Is that marked twice? Must be twice as important. Don't change things late at night. What is the common thread? Rhetorical question. What's the common thread among all those on the left-hand side there? They all have problems. Everybody in that group has a problem. Trust me, as being a probation officer for 10 years, I know. Whoever I've got in my office, he's got court costs, probation fees, community service, he's got to go to drug treatment, he's got to make his office visits, he's got to get his GED, he has to, the list goes on and on. Plus he's in trouble. I mean, he's got me or us on his back all the time. Unemployment officer. This guy or woman does not have a job. They're already upset. Always speaking one-on-one, don't cuss. Homeless shelters, obviously, no home. They got all kinds of problems. Many times they have drug, alcohol problems to go with it. Welfare eligibility offices. You just told the guy or the lady they are no longer eligible for welfare. You're taking the money out of their mouth, or so they think. Healthcare facilities, some sort of health issue, and homeless shelters. The typical victims, of course, are people who work in those places. Some internal crimes, against equipment, products, information. Negative information. Vandalia was going to close down 2 years ago, I guess. The governor was going to close it down. Still, to this day, after 2 years of remaining open, I've been there 2 years now, every week I have a rumor that Vandalia is closing down. They're shutting it down. If I carry a box out of my office, because I've collected too much stuff in my office, I'm moving out. Well, then the morale just drops, no one wants to do anything, no one cares anymore, it's an ongoing thing. So negative information can be quite detrimental to a company. Just point out sabotage, tampering, suspicious accidents. That was a common thing in my cleaning company. Things get broken all the time, belts get cut, vacuum cleaners. This is all little sabotage. Sexual harassment. If the probation or parole officer, wherever you're working, does not include that in every monthly minutes of your meetings, you need to. That should be in every one. But sexual harassment will not be tolerated. That needs to be repeated every time you have a meeting. It's going to come around and bite you. And let me tell you, I didn't count it, but I'm probably guilty of quite a couple of these. I don't know quite a few, a couple of these. I have 2 female secretaries. My HR person's female, everybody in my business office is female, and I'm a friendly, touching, pat you on the back, thanks dear kind of thing. I'm just friendly. I'm not making passes. I'm just friendly. But that's not to be misinterpreted. Contributing factors. An unsatisfactory review. When I was probation officer, we got reviewed every year. And back then, our reviews were tied to our raises. The better review you got, the better raise you got. If you don't get along with your supervisor, or you are that supervisor, that can be a trigger. Especially if you start compounding all these other things we're going to talk about. Disciplinary action, you've been in trouble. At one time, in my youth, I was the king of discipline. I was in the superintendent's office all the time. Conflict with a coworker. We always don't get along with everybody we work with. It happens. I was at one particular office, which I won't mention, that one officer was upset with what another officer said, and he began to choke him. And these are supposed professionals. When I was a police officer, I'll say where this was. I was a police officer in Lebanon. 2 of my officers, my sergeant and my detective, their children had a beef with each other. There was some sort of problem going on. My sergeant was back like this. Our detective was down the hallway. They were kind of cussing each other. We're all in there, including the city councilman. The sergeant said something derogatory. The detective pulled his weapon and started to walk towards the back. I'm a brand new cop. I don't know nothing. You know, I see people pulling guns, I've got mine on. I'm not sure who to shoot. I can't tell that. But it seemed to be the thing to do. If you're aimed at me, then I know who to shoot. So these things happen even among professionals, and how many here actually carry a weapon? Okay, and we've got a little litany of things that I do. I just teach kinds of tactics. And remember, every time you go somewhere on a call or home visit or whatever, there's going to be a weapon. It's going to be yours. You're going to hang on to it. Unfavorable grievance resolution. That's what Department of Corrections is pretty good about resolving conflict. If I've suspended her and she wants to appeal it, there's a pretty good, thorough process to review her suspension. Most of our people are union. So if I want her suspended for 3 days, I'll suspend her for 6. The union will come in, negotiate the 3. The employee's happier. I'm not happy, but that's what I thought was appropriate. And the union, our union president, said, I got you 3 days knocked off your suspension. So it all kind of works out real well. Denied promotion, of course, loss of pay or benefits, demotion, termination, layoff, and personal crisis. The personal crisis can always be underlined. I used to work with the state's attorney at St. Clair County. I can't remember his name. Very gregarious, very happy guy, outgoing. He was just full of energy and happy. I'm talking to somebody one day, and they said, it's amazing he functions as well as he does. And I said, well, why? Well, you know, after his wife's brain cancer and his quadruple bypass, you know, his son's got leukemia all at the same time. And you would have never known. You'd have no idea. But you never know what underlying current is going on with people. Whether it's your coworker, somebody you have contact with, or a probationer. Probationers can be very volatile. They have a lot going on in their life that maybe you don't realize. So if you have a probation revocation and you're going to arrest them, you need to position yourself in case something happens. When I had my business, my accountant would always come to my office, and he was always aggravated because there was never a stapler or a tape dispenser or a letter opener on my desk. They were always in a drawer. You know, because I'm a probation officer, I never let that thing laying out that they could chunk at me. I don't guess that's a term, chunk. Some contributing factors are social symptoms of violence. They're just a lot more common. We just tend to accept it. Watching the programs on TV, how violent they are. Cops, Miami Beach, the new patrol one. CSI, there's a symptoms of violence. Glorification of violence by the media that's going on and on. Weapons, of course, are everywhere. Increased use of drugs and alcohol, which I get to quite a bit. Breakdown of the family units. It's stressor. There's a lot more stress, to family situations. And let me tell you, you can't be arguing with the wife or husband or significant other at home and go to work and leave that there. It's going with it. I don't care what happens or how good you are, it's there. If I'd had a fight with my wife before I came up here, it would show. So you can't leave it home, and vice versa. If you got a problem at work, it's going to come home with you to some degree. Lack of traditional support systems. Well, kind of what I mean by that is, it used to be, my wife's example, her mom and dad live in Belleville, her brothers and sisters live in Belleville, immediate adjoining towns. They talk to each other, they see each other. My wife's on the phone all the time with her sister, they're talking. That's a nice enforcement. They have somebody they can call. Nowadays, people seem to be moving farther away. One brother goes this way, one sister goes that way. It's kind of spread out a little bit. I'm an only child, so economic, continued job instability. That's the problem I have with Vandalia Correctional Center, for example. Vandalia is not a very big town. 2 years ago, when they were going to close it down, people were saying, what would I do if I lost my job? If you would survey right now, everybody who works there, I bet you not one person has taken another college class or another training class or prepared themselves in any way in case they lose their job. I don't have job security. I'm appointed by the governor. If we change governors, I'm gone. Reality of life. What I do have is employment security. You can't be guaranteed of your job. You can't be guaranteed of employment. So as people are going on, a lot of times that's all they've ever done. We need about 2,500 beds in the prison, and we have probably 40 people there who's been at that prison for 25 years. They do nothing else. People need to prepare for problems. Smaller salaries. Maybe the salary isn't getting smaller, but the expenses are getting higher, so that money is isn't going as far as it did before. Fewer benefits, healthcare nowadays is absolutely crazy, limited re-entry opportunities, and job competition. More and more women are getting into the job market where they did not before. And I'm telling you, so these old timers, I'll call them, think that women's place is in the home. And you're going to have some of these old timers, I'll call them, that are going to be resentful of women in the workplace. That's a manager. Especially in my work, as a corrections officer. They think that that should be a man's job. So that creates some stress. Subcontractors, machines. We would love the prison if we could afford to put a lot more cameras in. That way we can see things, record things digitally. That way if an inmate hits an officer, we have it documented. If something's stolen, we have it documented. If there's an assault on an inmate or inmate, it's documented. The union sees that. I love the union, but the union sees that as we're trying to eliminate people. We put a camera there, we don't need a person. And of course, outsourcing. Organizational factors, chronic labor management disputes. The other day at one prison, and that's why I use because that's what I know, the warden had 300 grievances in a day. He is not getting along with his union at all. I have about 3 a month. And they're like what style phone they have or something, or a new chair. It's no big deal. Increased productivity demands. Remember those smaller salaries? That's fine, but you're doing more. I spoke at St. Louis International Airport, same subject. And I thought, well, just imagine you had 5 people clean this part of the building, or 5 people working this part of the building, and 2 got laid off or fired, and you 3 get more money to do this work. No, you got to do your work plus theirs for the same amount of pay. So a lot of times, productivity increases. Probation. Have a couple of leaves, somebody's on maternity leave, someone got hurt, someone had surgery. Oh, by the way, you're taking his caseload. You two are taking his caseload and split it in half. More productivity, a larger caseload. And of course, raise performance standards, you got to do it better. So you're not going to give any more money, we're going to have to do more work, and of course, do it better. I worked with one probation officer, Jeff Pointy, I'll even brag on him a little bit, I don't think much about myself. He would take all his documentation of employment whatever, and he'd take it out, he'd line it up, the whole stack, and he'd 2-hole punch it, and he'll send it to actually measure both sides. His files were just perfect. I took over his caseloads for a couple days when he was out on vacation. He came back, I thought the man was going to have a meltdown. I don't think. Unfavorable working standards, major restructuring, streamlining, we're reducing people, less people, more work, ineffective grievance handling. I think that's a big one. Some of these I skipped kind of fast. People want to be heard what their complaint is. My cab right over here, which is only probably 5 blocks, all the windows were up and no air on. You know, a little nervous about this. You know, most people said they'd rather die than speak in public. But I figured my house will see again. But you know, I'm coming over trying to stay kind of cool, kind of collected, and you know, the cab has no air conditioning. I just wanted to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody and complain. And that would help a lot. Because a lot of times after people are allowed to vent their frustration, they're done. So if you're having a problem with a coworker or something, if you can find out what the problem is, it'll go a long way. Authoritative management style. As you can probably tell, I'm not a real strict warden. I'm pretty easygoing. There's policy, you cannot have personal reading material at your job site. It's midnight, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, all the inmates are sleeping in your house unit. You can hear a pin drop at night. If you've got a magazine stuck under your desk platter, I don't care. I'd rather have you reading an alert than staring off into space dozing. So, you just have to be flexible and work with people. Some managers are not good people. They just don't handle people well. They're not empathetic to their needs or problems. They're just not jerks, for lack of a better term. And limited support mechanisms. They have nowhere to turn to. Drug abuse. I'm going to go through these kind of fast because everybody in here is familiar and probably better than I am. We have any drug counselors in here, drug alcohol? Probably better than I am on the effects of drug and alcohol in the workplace. Every prisoner I've ever talked to, when I asked them if they were high or under the influence of something when they committed their crime, have said yes. Very seldom do I get some guy who was stone sober and committed a crime. Some just quick, Mark Twain numbers here: 70 billion for alcohol, 44 billion for drugs, another 103 million for mental health. The crime associated with abuse, if you took those years and divided by how long somebody lives, that's about 2,907 lives wasted due to drug and alcohol abuse. 62%, 12% have been drunk, and 42% have tried illicit drugs. That doesn't surprise me. I remember being in high school, a couple of beers and a joint was not unusual for my fellow students. Not myself, of course, because I never inhaled. Some of the signs against tardiness arriving for work. And you can't go out drinking it. I work with people, I ask them, I say, how much do you drink when you go out? Oh, I don't know, 25, 30 beers? Is that not a lot? Is it just me? I think that's a lot. I think that's, because I'm a 3-drink guy and I'm done, so. But if you're out time all night, you're going to be late for work. I mean, if you make it at all. Come back to lunch maybe you had to have a drink when you left. I knew a sergeant used to have a little nip of gin at work, once in a while. We never said anything because otherwise he was an impossible work for. We didn't mind if he had a couple cocktails while he worked. That was a long time ago. Really, absolutely, of course, they're not going to make the work. They just don't plain show up to work. And some missed appointments. The job take longer. You give somebody something to do, it just takes forever. I'm sure, probably quite a few people have had a hangover or take a prescription medication for a toothache. You're just slower, you're just more lethargic, you don't move as fast. Erratic or declining productivity. They're not getting as much done, or they're getting a whole lot done and then nothing. A whole lot of work done and nothing. Especially some of our meth guys. I mean, they're putting 500 shingles on in a minute and then they're putting none. And wide swings in productivity, kind of the same thing. Minimal supervision. A lot of times we'll find that our officers who have drug or alcohol, alcohol problems, I'll say, are asked to move to the midnight shift in SAG. I think the best job in the prison. It's air conditioned, the front part is SAG, it's midnight, there's minimal supervision, it's a safe place to have a hangover. Or hang out with other drug users, birds of a feather. And refuse to, are other people not willing to work with somebody. Why? I just want to work with him. Well, he's high, he's drunk, or he just isn't producing well. And if I was going with this, I know you said you carried a weapon. If this young and I were going to go do home visits in a bad area, I don't want him dragging. I mean, I want him sharp. I want him watching that back door. I want him watching the suspect's hands. I want him watching other people's actions in the house. I don't want him hungover. I don't want to work with him. Again, increased mistakes, lack of attention, difficulty calling instructions, missed deadlines. There's not producing. And again, too, remember one of the things that one of the triggers or one of the causes of some of these violent episodes are a drug and alcohol abuse problem. And a lot of times this drug or alcohol abuse program is medicating something else. Whether it's they're self-medicating because it's a mental health issue, because they're fighting with the wife or husband, or because they didn't get the promotion, or, a lot of people turn to alcohol or drugs for their peace of mind. And I've got a cocktail in mind right after I'm done with this, just because I'll be done. Mood changes, unusual flares or outbursts. When you've been out too late, you're going to be cranky. You're going to be crabby. You're not getting well rested. You could blow up one of your coworkers. Personality changes. The guy who was normally outgoing and friendly is now kind of withdrawn and quiet. If I went to work and I didn't say anything all day, if I didn't say anything all 5 minutes, people would ask about me right away because you'll find out you just can't shut me up. But I promise to get you out of here on time. Or extra criticism. People like that. Once in a while, you say something to them, they just go nuts with anger. Long mood swings. I won't say anything about my wife on that one. See, you notice this is being recorded. I record myself so I can defeat myself later on. My wife will watch that. So, I'm not saying behind her back. Secret behavior, if they're trying to get drugs. We have one case with a probation officer. It used to be, do you have any intensive probation officers in here? It used to be when our department was smaller, I would be in the office this week, you would be on the street that week. And then we flip-flop. A week in the office, a week on the street. You're perfect in compliance checks. Go check a guy one night and he goes, what are you doing here? Well, what do you mean? Why are you stopping by? Stop by everyone. No. Doesn't so-and-so stop by? No, he never stops by. So management got suspicious, they started following him, and apparently him and another probationer was getting high together. And management actually caught them smoking a joint in the car together. Guy lost a good job and won't be able to work in law enforcement again. You just never know. Suspicious phone calls or messages, quick trips to the restrooms where they have a little drink or a joint or whatever. Financial difficulties. They're spending, drugs are expensive, they're spending a lot of money on drugs, or unexplained wealth. They're making a lot of money. They're doing a little business on the side to support their habit. I arrested a guy 2 years ago when I was still a policeman. All the way to the courthouse, all the way to the jail, he was telling me how to make meth. You know, oh, you give $100 of this, will create about $3,000 worth of this. He's going on. It's easy. I mean, that's a good sign. Difficulty with coworkers, some people you just never get along with. Withdraw from family, more behavior. They withdraw from family a lot of times because the family knows them the best. They know what's normal, what's not normal. If normally I was really quiet, you wouldn't know that because you're going to see me kind of wired up here. That's why they kind of move away from family a little bit. Lower behavior, they don't want to be with anybody else. Disruptive, overcritical of others, and of course hang out with drug dealers. Appearance. Anybody have any guys on meth on their caseloads? I mean, Southwestern Correctional Center has now is either 200 or 300 bed meth units designed specifically for our meth offenders. And they're concerned that the vendor that does our dental care is going to have to rebid it because they usually have a bad dental problem. Rap or extreme weight loss. They want to go off that crack diet. Sounds pretty good if I just major change in style of dress. Longer sleeves, maybe they're shooting up the drugs. Longer sleeves, it's August, it's hot like now, they've got long sleeves on, it might be a change. Inappropriate wearing sunglasses. I used to work with a guy who was a sponsor. He wore sunglasses all night long in a nightclub. I don't know, last time he'd been in a club, it was pretty dark now, but he thought he looked cool. He got hit all the time. Unusual efforts to hide arms or clothing or tattoos.
He was always alone. He didn't hang out with anyone. All his money gone.
He never really said much. When he did, he talked about his guns or about how much he despised his job. I never thought about it much.
You get the guy sitting around reading Bullet Soldier, Fortune 24 hours a day, and gun catalogs. I don't like guns myself. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you start adding everything together, it's not one thing. The profile. Don't depend on profiles, obviously. Because as soon as you profile somebody that says, this is your guy, you're going to make a mistake. Because I fit most of the profiles of a violent offender or workplace violence. That doesn't mean it can't be heard. Exactly, it's not an inclusive list, and a lot of employees have been behaved violently. You just never know what's going to be happening. User behavior to determine propensity for violence, and people with violent history like to be violent in the future. If you know this guy's been arrested a couple times for domestic violence or for resisting arrest or whatever, he probably will be violent again. Claims of exotic may indicate losing touch with reality. I had a woman one time who handed me different pieces of paper. They were all from public aid. One was telling me she goes, I'm the president. This one says I'm the Queen of England. This one says another thing. She poured bleach all over her floors because that kept the demons from coming through. And so, a lot of times people we deal with, they might have one foot in reality, they might be sliding out a little bit. I know one officer who left the door unlocked. This is not my place. Left the door unlocked, and an inmate went into the closet, took extension cord from the buffer, hung it over the door closer, and hanged himself. And the officer couldn't handle that. He kind of bugged out a little bit. So you got to keep an eye on people who are starting to claim the exotic. Again, drug and alcohol abuse, fascination with weapons, describing violent acts of other companies. I didn't catch it on the news. I was going to try to see if the computer played it. I don't remember where it was. The guy went back to work and stabbed 8 people. Was it Tennessee? I hope that was on TV. I'm not losing touch with it. Okay. Yeah, I was going to save it because that was quite a program now. But went back to work and stabbed 8 people. And take the threats are real. You never know. It's like
There is something in which she's entitled. propose you something, and violent.
Mr. Technology. I can't do that, I know. Unless there's some computer genius or anything else. Potentially violent employees, a little bit of profile, low self-esteem, they don't think very much of themselves. You know, they kind of have poor self-image. More at a marginal level, they're barely getting by, they're not really motivated to work so hard. Few interests outside of work, which is the problem. If no one has any interest outside of work and they lose their job, you've removed their identity. Hell, that's what to say. My brother worked for Hershey, loves Hershey. You ask him about Hershey, he can stand for 5 days and tell you about Hershey. He loves Hershey. And then they're going to let him go. They're going to reorganize his company and let him go. He then moved to New Jersey or somewhere on the East Coast. He was devastated. Is he a violent person? No, he's actually quite meek. But somebody else who had tendencies to be violent, that can easily turn because he lives for Hershey's. He loves Hershey. And if you call something he serves you an M&M, he gets really mad because Hershey doesn't make M&Ms. Views work as his core identity, which talked about possessing basic mistrust of the others. He just thinks everybody's out to get him. You know, because maybe he's a little strange. Maybe no one's sitting with him eating their fish sticks and, you know, Diet Coke, whatever. He is kind of a loner, so he has mistrust of other people. Thinks everybody's always talking about them, him. He has bad impulse control. Many of our inmates, probation, parolees, poor impulse control. Why'd you get in that car and drive around town? You know what's going? I don't know. Going for a ride. They want to go to prison for a couple of years or for probation, you know, parole. Because they want to go for a ride. I don't know. They robbed a liquor store because, I don't know. That one guy, last 5 hours is billfold, have a hard time, pretty much a good worker, family, laid his wallet down, was going to put his last $5, the last $5 he had in his name, in his gas tank, trying to get to work, the cash drawer open, he reached in, grabbed a big handful of 20s and took on run. Of course, we don't always get the brightest. He left his billfold, driver's license, and everything else on the counter. Let's see, we're in a little lax empathy. He doesn't care about anybody else. You don't have to do that, care. And that's true of a lot of managers. They just don't care about other people's problems. Externalizes blame. That's what the previous video was showing. It's never their fault. If I was late today, I would blame my wife because she didn't pack me right or whatever they think. It's never their own fault. An entitlement mentality. They think they deserve this job. I mean, my dad used to work here or whatever. I'm entitled to this job, and you shouldn't knock my pay down because I haven't got a home visit for 4 months. Spotty work history harbors resentment for a long, long, long time. Did you notice where the first video where the guy with the AK-47 ran back to? HR, yeah, HR. Wasn't his fault he missed 20 days of work or called in sick 30. HR person.
Who was he?
I think a disgruntled coworker. I think. I don't know the video that well. Warning signs. Again, personality attitude changes, behavior changes, obsessive behavior. Again, all these don't fit everybody. Myself, everybody ever see this show Monk about the obsessive compulsive detective?
Yeah.
That's me after the breakdown. Yes, my neighbors actually walk by and point at my garage because I have shells, those little plastic tubs, they're all numbered. And if you take the list off the wall, it tells you what's in each container. That's why I do so many things that she read off. I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old at home. They don't put things in tubs. Obsessive behavior, increased aptitude, chemical dependency, emotional outbursts, being very defensive, verbal threats, decline performance. They're just changing. There's something not right about the whole bill. Obsession with weapons, stories of violence. They tell all the time what happened. Hey, remember what happened to the post office? Remember what happened to so-and-so? Remember, they seem to have a kind of a fantasy with violence at work. Easily angered. Some people, I've got somebody I work with, if you say the wrong little thing, she is irate. I mean, and I'm the warden. I'm in charge. I'm it. My boss is my deputy director. And I get on great. He never gets on me, but if I say something to her, she will yell at me like I'm her kid. They take no personal responsibility, they don't handle stress well, And a lot of times it lasts for a romantic obsession with a coworker. Workplace romance. I met my wife of 10 years next month at work. Probation officer, she was a clerk in the courthouse. I used to walk by real fast, say hi. Yeah, me bashful, imagine that. Hi. And it was a big office, and I had to walk right past her desk. Well, I came in one day and they moved her all the way over here. So I had to actually go all the way over, past her desk, and cut back and cut over to say hi. I was using her copier one day, and she came up, and I see her walk up, and I'm making some copies of a file. And she said, who said, joking, who said you could use our copier? Me being the suave, debonair guy that I am, said, I did. I turned right and walked away, and just big tongue tie. Let's see again, blame others for life's failures or problems. It's just never their fault. I can't do anything else, but do they go to school at night? Do they do anything else to make life better for themselves? No. As you can see from the list that she read off, that I'll thank my secretary for, I like to do a lot. I compared. When I was 13 years old, I'm an only child. When I was 13 years old, I loved fishing out in the woods. We go out in the woods with my father. A tree fell over and landed on him and killed him. We're way out in the woods, and I'm 13 years old. There's one other person there. Very traumatic because I didn't know what to do. I was expecting what to do at 13. But ever since then, I want to know how to respond to whatever crisis might present me. So it's kind of my motivation. What's going to happen? Do you fire drills at home? If you talk to your kids about, keep strangers coming up. I've got my poor little 5-year-old so paranoid that when a car pulls in the driveway, he's running in, stranger. I got to keep my pepper spray real high because he'd be spraying everybody. I never get mail. Carrying weapons at work, obviously, depending on where you work, it might be normal or abnormal. We used to have people on probation come in our waiting office, waiting room all the time, and they'd have a weapon. We have a probationer come in and go, hey, you got a guy out there in a plaid shirt, big guy, got a gun. I know. Like, moved over, shirt goes, he's got a gun on. So we pull everybody in the waiting room, and for some reason it's always Steve. Steve, you go in first. Just because I'm a bigger target, they can't get people behind me. And we have to disarm them. But I'm like, how stupid can you be to be on probation and carry a weapon into your probation office? Violent behavior in history. History never repeat itself. Clenched fist is a guy who's looking like he's already dead. I mean, does he look like he's really going to do you? My wife and I don't fight much, but she loves to come up and like she's going to hit me, and I can't help but laugh. And that makes it even madder. Married guys know how it is. Well, I think you can make them mad when you give them a little laugh. Yell and scream, hand gestures. Well, they get very quiet. You're mad. Not mad anymore. You know why? They made up their mind what they're going to do. In the prison, if you have an inmate who's normally pretty depressed about being locked up, and also he's kind of happy and he's jovial, a lot of times those guys have decided that their pain of being away from their family and kids is over. They're going to commit suicide. The pain's over, so they can relax. They can kind of enjoy the last little bit of time. I got to check these. There's a lot of repeats in here. Wow. Sorry. Support system, paranoia, people are out to get them. They should be taken seriously. If they insinuate there's going to be any type of violence, you need to report to your supervisor. You just can't assume that, Bob doesn't mean that he's just blowing off steam. You need to let supervisor know. Have they done this before? History of failed relationships, lack of support system. Their wife has left them. Could it be because they lost their job, do drugs, too much time with weapons? I mean, these things all kind of contribute to each other. I know they have vent to me, they can feel frustration, and they like to isolate themselves. So they're distrusting of others. They just don't trust anybody, especially the government. Again, blame others for problems. Everybody's out to get them. And they hold long-lasting grudges. If you try to work with them and kind of give them some advice, they just ignore it. No, you're wrong. I'm right. You're not my friend. Why do I take any advice from you? Losing touch with reality, strange stories, mental illness. Do you all have an EAP, Employee Assistance Program? Good, very, very important. Again, too, when I say ownership of weapons, it's the highly exotic ones, like the AK-47. Not too much deer hunting done with the AK-47. Bambi doesn't respond well to high velocity rifles. swords, knives, kind of weird, exotic kind of things maybe. Again, too, not by itself, but all together. I don't know what he calls an NRA. What happened there could happen here. Oh my goodness. What happened there could happen here, kind of thing. A little faster. Any history should be dealt with swiftly and impartially, no tolerance. The company policy should be no tolerance. If you do it, you're gone. That should be it. When one probation officer strangled the other probation officer, he should have been gone. He was not. Oh, back to health. The last one, encouraging his behavior. Ignoring his behavior is the same as encouraging it. If you don't stop it, you're encouraging it. It's got to be nipped in the bud right away. We have a problem because the prison I work with, that the guys like to hang up what I call it the garage calendars. The bikini girl, the Hooters girls, or, and we just don't tolerate that. I mean, honestly, I didn't even notice it, but my assistant work program is a female. She spotted right away. I didn't even notice it. So no calendars. You can't ignore it. Education and training. Employees are the eyes and ears of the company. If something's going on, my employees should know before I do, and they will let me know that so-and-so's getting a divorce, or there's a problem, there's going to be an order of protection against one of my officers. We need to prevent lawsuits. It's with ADA and OSHA. It's a kind of a, should teach employees how to deal with acts of aggression and what your policy going to be. I mean, obviously, if a probation or parolee who's being aggressive in a waiting room, we would always just arrest him. Or if it's co-worker, or if it's my sergeant, my detective, and they're pulling guns at each other, what do you do? What is the policy? You can ignore the situation, confront the intruder if someone's not supposed to be in your building right away. You get another employee right away. Get a supervisor, call local law enforcement. Depends on how I think things. The manager or supervisor must be familiar with all the policies and procedures, and they must enforce those. They got to make sure that the policies and procedures that are in place are followed. Pre-employment screening and background checks, that's pretty good for all of us. We've all been through background checks, so we know there's no real history there. You have a threat assessment team. There should be people from everybody on kind of this list on it, because they're all going to have a different perspective, a different take on what needs to be addressed. They should assess the vulnerability. St. Clair County probation, let's change, I haven't been in a while. You walk into the waiting room, the receptionist was right there, small piece of glass with a big opening to pass paper through, and the door was unlocked. You could just walk in and walk right back. I think that wall should come all the way down like a bank teller thing to pass papers. That door should be buzzed in. There's two of the doors you go in, not very safe. So you need to do vulnerability analysis to see where are we weak and what's happening. Proactive measures to address weaknesses, go ahead and take care of those right away. Anticipate the potential crises, anticipate the problems. If this happens, what are we going to do? And review and revise these strategies, as it goes on. Company policy should absolutely state it should not tolerate workplace violence. You should list what is prohibited from occurring. Let's see, emergency policy. Again, at the meetings, every meeting you should say no sexual harassment, no workplace violence. You should go through the whole list. At every meeting we have a reminder of hooch and weapons-free environments. Look for things that might be maybe use hooch or maybe use a shank. Let's see, the goals of the crisis intervention team: gather information, analyze it, and then act upon it. Security awareness for the employees, overview the workplace violence policy, the threats, signs of violence behavior. Robert, I can take off this group. Training, location, operation, alarm equipment, access control. Like I was talking about getting into the buildings. ID badge, if your number ID should be there. Who to call for help. And I think it comes up later on, some sort of password. If you're having problems with either a co-worker, it's kind of tough. With a probationer or a parolee, you should be able to call, if you're talking to someone and say, I need to work on the Jones file, or would you bring me the Jones file? That's letting that other officer know that you're having a problem without saying, hey Bob, I've got a problem with this guy. Well, as a police officer, they call us on radio when we make a vehicle stop and get a call, 10-1000. If we didn't answer, we have a problem. So, just like a dead man switch. If we didn't answer, the cavalry was coming. Pre-employment screening, of course, employee, EAPs, patterns of behavior for supervisors, threat evaluation, team effectiveness, business recovery planning. If you have a major event at your office, can't get in there for a while, it's too traumatic for people, there's holes in the wall or whatever, we're going to move your offices to where you're going to plan. You move to the courthouse, if you're not in the courthouse, we're going to conduct business. Check out the academic records, their background checks, make sure that they're accurate. Prepare well for the interview. I got to go through these kind of fast, I got a couple more to go. Ask other employees for recommendations. Who would you recommend? My cousin just got hired, he's a new probation officer out of Secretary County. A lot of that was based on recommendations from people that knew him. During the interview, I'm going to skip this one, background check. It is your first step in preventing workplace violence. Again, too, when you guys still do the risk and needs analysis? I always hate the bottom one, 15, yes ma'am, okay. Bottom one, 15 points for, assaultive behavior. The guy's doing real well, but he got a bar fight, so he gets 15 points, and you gotta come in twice a month, and still that way. Termination, this is where you gotta handle it really carefully. You need to have all your ducks in a row. When I was a probation officer, if I had you in, and I would rehash what you're supposed to do, what you did not do before I would arrest you. Now Bob, how much of your community service do you have done out of 130 hours? 1. Did you do this? How much money did you pay? How many appointments have you missed? Why'd you miss 6 office visits? Why? And they go, Bob, you really left the judge no choice but to revoke your probation. And then I would tell them around the rest of the public. But I would kind of let them know. And the same with termination. Whoever gets terminated should know it's coming. It should be a no surprise. Same with your probationer. It should not be surprising if you revoke. Because every time you have an office visit with them or a phone contact, you should be letting them know you're not doing these things. You are slowly violating your probation. So when it comes, it should be no surprise. Conduct determination if it's a hiring firing. At the end of the day, let security know if you're going to make an arrest in your office, let your supervisor know in case there's a problem. This doesn't really apply too much to the probationers. We get their ID, cell phones, pagers, EAPs, access control. Again, to limit how people get into your building. Physical security. Have plenty of locks. Someone burglarized my office the other day. Somebody got the keys out of the armory and went into the warden's office, which is just, I can't believe. They didn't do anything really horrible, but they took all my political pictures of me and whoever my friends are and laid them face down on the carpet as to say, we don't care who you know, we don't care. So we had to put a keypad on my door now. So only a few of us have the combination because anybody can get the keys out of the armory. I didn't think anybody break in. Security, that's for everybody. Should go over pathogens, bomb threats, building safety, CPR, healing public, self-defense to some degree, emergency response procedures. If something happens, what are we going to do? It's off the workplace violence thing, but if you're going to have a tornado in your building, a fire, a violent person, what are we supposed to do? Do you all have a plan that if you all need to evacuate the building, how do you know someone's there? Do you have like staff wellness checks? Because at the prison, I'll remember once in a while, call the armory, stop movement, I need a staff wellness check. We'll count all the inmates and all the staff. So whoever signed in should be there. If they're not accounted for, we'll go looking for them. In case of a hostage situation, we need to order by it. Managing the crisis. Obviously, I almost skipped through quite a few of these because I don't want to too long. You need a plan before the crisis happens. Again, too, I'm very obsessive compulsive. In my house, we used to have a bunch of tornadoes and storms down south. In my house, we had the storm bag. It's loaded with flashlights, lanterns, batteries, the scanner for the fire department, all kinds of stuff. During a storm, I grabbed that bag. When I could see the funnel cloud outside my house, it's not the time to be going, where do I keep those flashlights and the batteries? So before you have a violent incident at your office, you need to plan what are we going to do in response